Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast. Every 2 weeks, we watch an anime separately. We come together to talk about it. We try to include you, the person listening to us right now, in that discussion, and the fact that we're not as smart as we like to pretend we are, and we could definitely use some additional insights in our comment section and start conversations, and that's what this show's all about.
When are you going to start speaking for yourself?
Never. Take responsibility for anything? That's not how I roll. Hey, you be quiet. You're not introduced. Anyway, to talk about the anime that we watched, I would like to introduce our co-host. First off, we have the Steve Austin to my $6 million man, Jeremy.
So I'm the guy before he becomes cool. I don't like that. I want to be the $6 million guy to the Steve Austin.
He's still Steve Austin.
Yeah, but come on. I want the how do you do that sound? Check.
Like a boing, 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 boing.
God, it's been too long.
It's been a while. Yeah. I'm definitely dating myself with this reference, too.
No, yeah.
It was old when I was a kid.
Yep. Parents' favorite. Yep. Doing pretty good. Discovering that teenage Jeremy has horrible taste in books sometimes. There was a series of books, I guess it's just a trilogy, that I remember bits and pieces from, and I remember really, really liking it. It's called The Well of Souls. And so on Audible, I got all three, thinking, yeah, this is a great buy. This is a great buy, Jeremy. Use your credits on this. And so I started listening to the first one while I was at work, and oh my God, it is so bad. It is so hard to listen to. Like, there is a character, the main character just has this other character in the book for nothing more. Like, I know the author intended it to be more complex than this, but I swear to you, it breaks down to nothing more than a source for him to exposition to, and also like be turned on by. And like, it's so much more juvenile than I remember it being. And that says so much about me.
So you're telling me that you should have bought the first book first, listened to it, then considered the other two?
Yes, I should not have just gone in for the whole deal. But I mean, the premise is amazing. I love the premise where you have like this giant world that is separated into hexes that make it up. So it's like a giant icosahedron, right? And each hex is its own like ecosystem with its own gravity. It can have different technological levels. It has its own species. Some technology doesn't work in different hexes. Magic works in some hexes. Like, it is a really interesting idea. And when people wind up going there, they get transformed into and placed in one of these hexes. It's a really interesting idea. But I didn't remember, like, I remembered the high points. I did not remember the, like, 90% that existed that wasn't the high points. So sad.
Fair enough.
Okay. We also have the Alex Murphy to my RoboCop 2014 edition. Hi, Jason. How are you?
Stop. You are breaking the law.
You don't get to have the great quality lines.
No?
You're the remake dog. Yeah, you just...
You know, I missed the remake. So.
I know. So did most people.
Also, for those listening in the podcast, I got scolded for not seeing How to Train Your Dragon yet.
For someone who's like, Disney's the devil, and then there's a company that's literally trying to take Disney down, and you're like, I'm not watching their work.
All right, listen, I have a lot of movies on my plate, and some just fall through the cracks. Anyways, speaking of movies, I saw a great kaiju movie this weekend, King of the Monsters. Okay.
It's Godzilla. You gotta say Godzilla.
It was okay, Godzilla. But anyway, it was I had a ton of fun. It was everything the first one was not, while referencing events for the first one. So like it it had a lot of the aftermath and like people's perception and like also like prejudice
Against Godzilla.
Yeah. Well, against the idea of these titans, right? They call them titans. And then, of course, I think the one criticism I have is this movie makes it out to be like there are literally hundreds of these titans around the world.
Whoa.
And there's this shadow organization with a government front that's like trying to control every single one with like this like black ops site at each one. And I'm like, where are they getting the funding for this? But
how is Godzilla going to deal with all of these? Like, that sounds like way too much up with King Kong.
He's the alpha. So my cat, I'm going to strangle.
Well, I'm glad your cat's like, spoilers. Spoilers.
What? I know nothing about this film. Like, so these are just guesses.
Okay. No, yeah, I'll leave it to have you watch it then.
I'm excited to watch it. Yeah.
Also, don't talk crap about the first Godzilla movie. I like the first Godzilla movie.
No, I really like the first one. Is that people complained that he was literally had 11 minutes of screen time.
I know, because they haven't seen Godzilla movies before. It's fine. You can't base it off the Matthew Broderick one, guys.
Hey, look at the purist here.
So, speaking of, how is our Marcus Wright to the hybrid Terminator?
Is that from Terminator Salvation? Did you reference Terminator Salvation like on purpose?
I had to look it up. Yeah.
Okay. Was he a person that was put back together?
Yeah, it's Marcus Wright donated his body as a test subject and was transformed into a cybernetic organism. So I'm guessing.
I kind of remember that movie, but now
I just remember it kind of sucked.
Yeah, it's stripped from canon, so it's not even worth remembering. Like, we're moving on. The new movie's coming.
Speaking of Terminator, did you guys see the new Terminator trailer?
Yeah.
No.
I'm torn. It looks interesting.
It's got Schwarzenegger in it.
There's so many. It's Comic-Con, man. I'm trying to keep up. That's like the one that's fallen through the cracks.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it's like they took a T-1000 and then put a T-2000 on top of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And so now he's like, but it's the same one, but he can like split into two. It's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Troy.
Yeah, Troy.
How's
our resident Terminator?
I watched Spider-Man Far From Home, and I really liked it. There's a cameo in there that I absolutely adored. And it is amazing to see Mysterio on screen. Like, the movie's not perfect. They went kind of with the same teen angsty John Hughes vibe like they did for Homecoming. I still really like this Spider-Man, but to see Mysterio on screen and to see him work in a movie, I didn't think would ever happen.
Just because of the fishbowl helmet?
The fishbowl helmet, his power set, his whole...
I don't even remember
illusion,
his power set.
Yeah.
Yeah, his whole gimmick. And he's one of my favorite villains from the comic books. I love Mysterio. I liked him more than Doc Ock and Green Goblin. He was like one of the first I read in a comic book, so he was like my guy. And I was like, no. Doc Ock, you understand him conceptually. He's got robot arms. Yeah, it's Green Goblin. He flies on a glider. It makes sense. What does this guy do? He makes you think you see stuff. All right. How does that work in a movie? Really well, turns out.
Would it be a spoiler to ask or for you to answer? Does he really have magic powers, or is it all just like stage magician illusion?
That's a very hard question to answer because if you don't know anything about Spider-Man, that's a big spoiler. If you've read a single Spider-Man comic, that's kind of obvious how Mysterio works.
We'll see.
I do want to address a quick somber note. While we were watching this anime, the news came in about Kyoto Animation and the arsonist attack and the people who died and were hurt in that fire. And we do want to give our condolences from this podcast. We have seen Violet Evergarden and Dragon Maid, and we were big fans of those animes, and so any animation studio, of course, we have the utmost respect for. So we were very sorry to hear that.
Yep. Prayers for the survivors.
Okay, then we will go on to talking about the anime. We watched Dororo, which I'm sure I'm butchering to say. I'm gonna have trouble with
You
all
had
the
too many
names.
rows in there.
Yeah, you did.
Dororo.
Dororo.
Yeah, Dororo. I'm just gonna slur it.
Yo.
Dororo.
Dororo.
So this is an interesting anime in that it's a adaptation of an older anime and manga back in the original days, and so it was really originally created by Osamu Tezuka, who created Astro Boy and Blackjack, and I mean Astro Boy is like the OG anime, right?
Mm.
So he also made this,
No,
and
Dragon Ball Z is.
The first.
The original anime was the first entry in the World Masterpiece Theater. I read on Wikipedia 5 minutes ago.
What?
Must be true.
Yeah. I think I actually have heard that mentioned. I watched The Mother's Basement on the adaptation too. I think he mentioned it too. And this anime is produced by Mappa, who has done Yuri on Ice and Rage of Bahamut, Genesis,
Yeah.
which is an anime that we've watched. Let's practice that one.
Got it.
So, like I say, yeah, it's an adaptation of a very older series, and they made some changes to it. But it's a very unique situation for this podcast. So that is what we watched. Let's just go into it like we always do. We'll start with our non-spoiler reviews. Jeremy, why don't you go first for us?
I really like it. I think it's a really entertaining anime, and I want to see where the story goes from here.
That's it. Okay.
Short,
sweet.
quick, so
You're saving
we
it.
have lots of time to dig in.
Okay, Jason, how about you?
I have a special place in my heart for anime for that feature feudal Japan. I adore this anime so far. And like Jeremy, I can't wait to see what comes up.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked it. We only watched the first 12 episodes. I should definitely have mentioned that. But I'm really into what it's doing, the way it's revealing the characters. It's got very dark tones to it. It also has some very light tones. That was probably one of my few complaints is sometimes it feels like it's trying to be true to the older series, which is probably a lighter tone, but then true to today's sensibilities, which has some darker tones. They don't always mix perfectly, especially in the episodic format that it's presented in, which I'll kind of touch on later. But for the most part, I was really happy to watch it. Now let's talk about the opening and the closing. You guys better be nice. Go ahead. What do you guys think?
I liked both of them. I liked the opening much more than the closing, but the closing was, I don't know. It felt like a warm hug at the end because some of these episodes needed it. But I really dug the intro. The guy that does the song, I listened to the full song. I'm not a big fan of the full one, but yeah,
because of the rap part. Is it the rap part that ruins it?
That is a part that I'm not a fan of.
Me too. I listened to the full song and the rap part starts. I'm like, oh, we were on such a hot streak.
You right? But it blends fantastic with the visuals. So,
yeah, totally agree. Absolutely love the intro. And the outro to me didn't feel comforting. It actually felt really sad. Like it compounded the sadness for me.
Oh no.
Yeah. But I really liked it too.
Just to build on what you guys have already said, this is probably one of my favorite intros in a long time because not only do I think the song is great that's played in it, and the visuals are great, but they go together so well. The moment when the bamboo shoot goes quonk, right as Dororo flicks his ear.
Yes, love that.
Ears. Every part that plays, I'm like, oh, that's cool, great. I just get a little chill. But the visuals are so pretty, and it's built all together. It's just a nice package, and the ending was really good too. I love watching every moment of it, trying to be like, okay, what does that all mean, though?
So you thought we weren't gonna like them?
I was concerned. I did, download the full song and just like Jason, that rap part starts playing. I'm like, yeah, it wasn't quite what I was here for, but all right. Okay, let's go into our spoiler section now. So we will be revealing plot points, characters. If you haven't seen the anime and you're wanting to, this is the point you should probably stop listening to the podcast, but do come back. We need listeners. All right, spoiler warning given. This is set back in feudal Japan, and we start with a woman giving birth, but then we quickly jump to Lord Daigo. And we're going to talk about him first, but I want to give a quick intro to what he does to kind of set up what we're referencing when we talk about him. He basically goes to what is called the Hall of Hell, where all these demons have been trapped. I was getting the impression by him, like he's rid this land of demons and trapped them in this hall. And he goes there, and there's like a priest there, and the priest is like, "You're gonna do something bad." He's like, "Yep," and he kills the priest, and he basically tells the priest, "I pray to Buddha and God, and my land's perishing, and so what's the point?" And what's crazy when the old man dies, he's like, "Thank you for killing me, because I was starting to doubt too, and now I can die a pure soul." That's such a crazy scene. But then he prays to the demons to save his land, bring him prosperity, and take whatever they want. And they strike him with like a lightning bolt and give him an X, and he goes back home. And then we go back to the birth, and when the baby's born, a lightning bolt strikes the baby, and the baby loses all its limbs, its eyes, its ears, its tongue, its nervous system, skin,
a variety of organs.
Yeah, it's 12 demons, and they took 12 things from him.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
That's just kind of the initial setup, but now we can talk about Lord Daigo, and because he's really the villain of this story, but he's not. And my understanding is that in the original, he was just like, I am the evil villain of this story, but here he's a little bit more complicated. There's some morality at play here. So what did you guys think of this, our antagonist?
I really, really like this character because for a couple reasons. The idea that he has ambition. He wants more land. He wants to be a higher ranking lord. But his first thought is, my land and my people need to flourish and thrive first before I can do that. And I'm willing to give you anything in order for you to help me accomplish this. And it seems to be this moral dilemma where it's like, am I willing to sacrifice, one child for the prosperity of, what seems like thousands? Is that something you're willing to give up? And it definitely makes him not quite the moral monster that we might think he is at first glance. And all the interactions we get throughout the entire anime, he's not abusive to anybody. He's not particularly evil. He's defending his borders. He's not on some sort of war quest. And all the times that he does talk about war, it's just, hey, we're at war, we're defending our land. He doesn't seem to be the person that I can grab onto and say, "Oh, you evil, nasty guy."
Yeah. He even, like, when his son talks about going to war, he's like, "You have never been to war. You don't know what war is like. You don't know what you're talking about. It's bad." So, yeah. No, I completely agree. I actually, I think with Daigo, one of the really interesting things to me is the idea of his ambition and whether or not that even fits. Like, it never occurred to me that he was the one that imprisoned those demons in that temple. And that's a really interesting idea.
They mentioned that in, I think, 11.
It's the play. When they're talking about, the play.
I thought that the priest turned and said, "Yeah, that's a bunch of, or at least that's the impression I got, was that the priest was calling it as, propaganda. But I don't know. That could have just been my interpretation. If he did do that, and even if he didn't, just the amount of ambition that he had fundamentally goes against the principles that he would have had or would have been trying to cultivate if he was trying to follow Buddhist values and pray to the various Bodhisattvas and Buddhas. Or Buddha. It's very interesting to see that basically in the end, because he wouldn't fall into that sense of letting fate, letting destiny, letting the karma of the world around you decide for you, which would essentially mean that, as he describes it later, this land was hell. There were landslides, there were droughts, there were constant wars.
Nothing would grow.
Yeah, nothing would grow. But according to the path of the Buddha, that is something that it really doesn't matter. You don't have ambition to try and change that. Nothing that you do should try to change anything. You should just be trying to be good and walking forward with whatever life hands you. And so I do find it very interesting that in the end, whether he was following that or not, he wound up having to direct his ambition because he's not going to get anything from the Buddha way. Praying into Buddha for something that you're expressing ambition for is not going to result in success. So instead, he winds up actually praying to the demons that possibly he himself helped to imprison in this place. I think that's an absolutely fascinating irony of what extent that he was willing to go to when he didn't get what he wanted, which does kind of speak to what kind of character that he is. And I love the complexity of whether or not, because he's justifying it all the time. He keeps bringing up, I've tried to explain it to you, wife. I've tried to explain it to you again and again. You don't get it. This is necessary for the greater good. There's lots of opportunities where we're finding out that he is, but at the same time, he's trying to keep it concealed. He doesn't want anybody to know that he did this, which means that he's ashamed of it, or he's worried about the reputation hit that he would take. Either way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's so much that's left to subjectivity to try and understand what kind of character he really is. And other characters are even calling him out. And they're like, no, you did this for your own prosperity.
That's what I was thinking, is that there's such a thin line of, I want my land to be successful, or I want to be the lord of a successful land.
Yeah.
And which one was he? And did it change when he made the initial deal and was touched by the demons? Did he change his morality level? And it's no longer just for the greater good. It's also now a little bit about me. The part that really struck me, though, is when this baby's born and this happens and he sees it happen, he immediately starts laughing like, oh my God, I got off so easy. This is such an easy thing to take care of. We just throw this baby away and we'll make another. Yeah. That part is hard to justify as, he wasn't like grief stricken, like, oh, I can't believe they took this, but I guess it's for the greater good. He's like, oh my God, I won the jackpot of making deals with demons.
Yeah, somebody else is going to carry my burden.
Right, and this is a renewable resource as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yep.
So that does kind of hinder it, but like I said, would he have felt that way? The man who walked into the Hall of Hell felt that way before making the deal with the demons, or did it change him at all? There's another character we're going to talk about who kind of purifies the morality question that he brings up, that I also think is really interesting that they did. Okay, so what happens with this baby is he tells the midwife, go take care of it, and what's really important is the Buddha statue in the room breaks. The head falls off.
Right.
And that's used kind of as a symbol throughout the entire anime.
Can we also point out, when the midwife goes to do this, she makes it pretty clear this is not the first time she's done this.
Oh, yeah, getting rid of babies.
So this apparently is not the first time that Diago has gotten rid of an unwanted child.
My impression wasn't that it wasn't his children she got rid of, that she's just, as a midwife, sometimes has to get rid of babies.
Oh, okay.
It's possible that some of them were stillborn too.
Right. Or born deformed, or just, something, who knows?
Yeah, exactly. It's also gender based. Yep.
Right. It's clearly a horrible land. Just that comment could be made, right?
Right.
But,
suffering. Mm-hmm.
So she goes and instead of putting the baby in the water, she puts the baby in a boat because she can tell it wants to live, and she's like, "Well, I'm gonna put you in the boat and leave it up to the gods." And then she's immediately killed by a giant centipede demon in samurai armor.
Yeah.
which is a horrifying scene. Probably one of the most horrifying of this entire anime.
It's
Yep.
one of the scariest of the monsters we see. Yeah.
This is the moment where the anime said to me, "Hi, welcome to my world. This is what you're in for."
And then we see the blind priest who we should also talk about, who's like wanders by, kills the demon, sees the boat, and is like, "That's interesting. There's something alive in there," and then just like walks away. I'm like, okay, I get it. He's gonna find a baby. He's gonna train the baby. He's clearly got, he's blind, so he's gonna be able to teach you how to do it. It's like Daredevil's teacher was blind too, but then no, he just is like, all right, well, on with my life.
See, and this is really interesting to me because this fits more in line with like following the teachings of the Buddha, which is, you don't affect anything. And so he can observe, but the only thing that he corrects is like other interfering individuals like the demons and monsters and stuff.
Right.
Any thoughts on the priest character? Because he does show up a couple times throughout the anime.
I really like him. And I think they made a really good choice with him, not just like joining their group and tagging along for the entire adventure. But it is nice that he keeps running into them, because we come to find out that he has the same sight ability that, our main character will get, where he can't see, but he can see the souls of other people and things and living things. And if it's evil, it's red. And he mentions that he looks in the boat, he sees something's alive in there, but he's like, I have never seen anything like that. Like he didn't say, oh, it's a person, or like I think he mentions it's a baby, but at first he's just like, that's not right.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that is.
It's got like fire coming off of it or something. He says, yeah. I really liked him. He's an enigma to me still. I don't know what his end goal is. There's one demon that's mentioned that he was unable to get to the child because that's why Buddha's head exploded in the statue. It was getting in the way of stopping this intervention with its own intervention. And for a while I was wondering if this old man was the manifestation of that demon trying to weave its way into the situation. But later he makes the same observation inside the temple. And so I'm like, okay, so he can't be this. I have no idea. And I really hope they do explore a little bit with the old man. But at the same time, I really like the mysteriousness of him. And they might do worse to reveal a history than to allow him to maintain his mystery.
Yeah. I agree with both you guys on what you've said. I also thought he was really useful to have around to explain for a guy who can't talk how his powers kind of work when we need it. He's kind of like, hey, I showed up. Oh, you don't know how this guy can see? Let me explain to you how I can see, and then you'll understand how he can see. And he kind of gives that nice connection that their two main characters need to fill in some blanks here and there. But yeah, I agree. Like, I'm glad he didn't just, I'm going to be with you guys. He just kind of wanders across them every once in a while. And he also is the one to point out about Hakimaru's character development. Like, we don't know if he's friend or foe, really. Yeah. We haven't fully met the character. He is becoming the character, and this blind priest
being a character.
Dororo calls him a priest. I don't even know if he is a priest. He's just a blind guy with like a sitar and a blade.
A blade in the sitar, which is awesome.
It is awesome. Wouldn't that ruin the sitar?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the handle is where the strings come from, but not when it's in his hand.
Don't think about it too much.
Okay.
Right? It's just like the prosthetics.
He just puts the strings on when he needs to make a little money, and then when he's traveling, he takes them off.
Anything that they carve out of wood is just enchanted in this,
right?
Way, and it just magically works for some strange reason.
Okay, so then we flash forward in time, and we come to meet the character Dororo, who, big spoiler here, guys, is a girl. And the anime clearly goes out of its way to make you think it's not. You're supposed to think this is a boy.
I really thought it was a girl the whole time. I was like, that is drawn way too cute to be a boy.
I was thinking the same thing, but I bought that it was a boy, but I was like, Everything about this screams little girl.
I thought it was just the Astro Boy art style leaking through.
Nothing else had it, and
No,
so
you're right.
I thought it might be art style too, and that was the only way I was like, if it is a boy, they really tried to make it a very girly, cute little boy, and that is so weird.
Here's my thing. I 100% bought it, was fooled hook, line, and sinker, and as soon as they revealed it, I'm like, yeah, of course it's a girl.
Yeah.
Duh, it's the most obvious thing in the world. How am I missing it? Am I blind?
Oh, by the way, this little girl is a big jerk. That's how we were introduced.
They did such a great job explaining with the backstory why she's a jerk, and not just because she went through stuff, but also like who raised her. Like, I get it.
My one big complaint about her big secret reveal is that I wrote he so many times in my notes, and I'm like, I can't.
I'm not going to go back and fix all this.
Yeah. So, but yeah, let's go ahead and talk about her and her character, because we do meet her, the little thief, con artist, street urchin.
I really liked how snarky and bratty that she was, and so many times she's like basically just bragging about Hyakimaru's abilities, and then putting out her hand like, "Give us money now, give us money." Like, she was his salesman all the way, and she was the voice for him for a long time. And there's a particular moment where I think Hyakimaru's response toward her when she was in a situation of danger and she was unable to respond, and he needed her to respond. And the way that he, I don't want to spoil it because we'll get there, but it showed so much sentimental attachment that he had developed for Dororo. And to me, that kind of sold her being an important enough character to have the anime named after her. Because up until that point, I was just like, okay, yeah, she's a funny kid. She's important because she's there, and she's kind of making it a little bit more lighthearted sometimes. But Hyakimaru is the main character, and this would be more interesting to me if the anime was named Hyakimaru or something, or like Limbless Demon Slayer. I don't know, but Dororo. But so far, I think I'm starting to get sold on the idea. Dororo is converting me.
Demon Murder Road Trip.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
My favorite title. Yeah, I thought Dororo was great. I love the snarkiness, the salesmanship, but one thing that kind of struck me at first, and it developed into more of a peer-to-peer friendship, is Dororo saw Yakimaru as almost a pet at first that needed guidance and needed a set of eyes in the world in order not to be taken advantage of, in order to guide. And it was neat to see the tenacity that she showed in sticking with him, even though he wouldn't respond. He just saw this glowing white, familiar soul that kept close around. Leave him alone.
Yep.
And she, throughout their adventures, especially when he couldn't see or hear, she would stay with him. So it was pretty touching the way that relationship grew.
Yeah.
Back when we watched Outlaw Star, we talked about like kid sidekicks in anime and how big they were back in the old days. Dororo to me feels like the perfect one. This is I didn't have a single qualm about it. She felt like her own character. She wasn't just like, this guy's so cool, I'm going to attach myself to him. She saw he had a need, she had a need, and they could fill it for each other. He didn't try to hurt her and shoo her away. He wasn't repulsed by her. And so she was fine that he was weird. He wasn't part of the war. Like the connection and the reason she would follow him makes so much sense. And she wasn't a victim all the time needing to be saved. She just as much was a help to him as he is to her. The relationship makes a ton of sense in the way they present it. And she's probably my favorite character because of how well they sculpted her. And I thought a lot about those child sidekicks that show up in so many anime. And I'm like, man, this is probably my favorite one and how it's presented. It's so cool.
On that note, I love how I didn't find one moment where there was this unrealistic series of events where Dororo like saved Hakimaru or like was able to do some sort of, fantastical move where the killing blow was from Dororo. Like they were able to keep it fairly realistic into the skill set that Dororo could have at that age.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so when we meet her, she gets immediately in trouble with some thugs that she had stolen from and was trying to sell their wares.
I think it's like, and I was wondering this the whole time. Are they even thugs, or were they just merchants that were like, oh, she's hungry, you can just,
No,
guard our wares or something.
She had been harassing them for some time now.
That's what it seemed like. Like they even called out. They're like, "We're the victims. She's not the victim."
But yeah, like you said, they had hired her, and then she had robbed them.
Yes,
and then she throws poop at them.
Yeah, she's horrible.
And they end up, they beat her,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're like, "Okay, we've taught you a lesson. We're walking away." And she like throws a rock at them, like, "I don't learn lessons."
Yes.
And so the main guy like starts to drown her.
Yeah.
But this is when Hakimaru shows up, and they all kind of stop what they're doing. They're like, because when you meet Hakimaru in this anime for the first time, he's wearing a porcelain mask. He's got prosthetics on everything but one leg, and he's blind, and he's got no senses. And they're like, well, "What is he? Is he looking at us?" And she points out, "No, he's looking past us." And then a demon shows up. But now is a good time to talk about Hakimaru and his character, even though like I said, it's still being formed, but that's very much interesting to watch. So what do you guys think of Hakimaru so far?
I really like Hakimaru. I like that without sight, smell, sound, taste, touch, he was able to not only become a decent swordsman, mainly because of his demonic strength that he has.
Yeah.
Because they make it pretty clear he's got superhuman strength compared to all the people around him.
Mm.
But that and we learn a little bit more about his backstory, which I really like his backstory. How he was able to develop a morality, and that, very Buddha-ish in that, I'm not going to affect things that are basically not demons. But, he cares for the things he cares about, but he doesn't cause problems for other people. In fact, he tends to help more people because he's always trying to slay demons. But as time goes on and we learn more about him, that's kind of where it's becoming fascinating, because now he's having to discover things like, I have a mother and father. What do I do with this information? I have a brother. So I'm really excited to see the next 12 episodes.
Yeah, I have one minor problem. Like, obviously, like we talked about this a little bit in the pre-show, the prosthetics, that's not too big of a problem for me, just because of the sense that this anime, there's so much in it that is mythological and magical and everything, that it gets you in a mode where it's a little bit easier to suspend your disbelief that certain rules that are fundamental for the way that the anime works.
You just don't have violence.
I think it's beautiful. But the thing that really got me was how quickly he picked up language when he got his hearing back. Because, I mean, he's...
For all those who saw that coming, pay your $10.
I love what they did with this, and I love the freedom that it gave them to develop him. And I don't really see it happening any other way unless you're going to take this anime and stretch it out much, much longer than 24 episodes to have the same content developed. And then you could slowly, gradually have him learn language, and it would have more impact, but that's not really what this anime is about. So they're kind of fast forwarding through that. And it's an unknown, unspecified, really, time that he's traveling with Dororo from the point he gets his hearing back to the point that he starts hearing words that he recognizes, like son. And the way that they handled it with the animation of like his face and even his body language when he hears that word and he understands that there's a relationship there, it's beautiful and it conveys it so well. But I'm left wondering, what did he understand about the world around him when he didn't have any of his senses? And all he could really do was just interact with these hazy soul forms and, feeding him, making prosthetic limbs for him, helping him so he could learn to discern. I'm sure he could tell the difference between them and everything, but go ahead.
I 100% knew you were going to say this, so I've definitely put some thought into it.
Okay.
I did too, by the way.
Uh-oh. You guys know me too well.
The one thing is, in the original, he had telepathy. So when the character is introduced, he's literally just talking out loud, and he's like, "No, I'm not actually talking. I'm putting my words into your brain, and I can hear your words coming into my brain." But as far as the story presented, he talked back and forth.
Interesting.
The only one thing that really made sense is early on when they first meet the priest, Dororo is trying to do something for Hakimaru, and he's like, "Well, he's got no senses. He can't understand." He's like, "He understands. He can sense what you're doing." So I think there is more to his sixth sense than just being able to see souls. I think there is intent and understanding. I think he realized Jukai was raising him, and he knew Jukai was sending him out into the world at that moment, even though there's no way Jukai could have told him that. Jukai did teach him how to write his name. He could have taught him more words, and he at least maybe could make the connection of, okay, I wrote this, and then I understand that it has this sense of a meaning, and then I can use that to build language. But like I said, it's probably mostly just hand wave, so for time's sake. But there is what the priest had said of, he does understand your intent. I think that would go a long way to helping him get to language once he has ears and mouth.
Yeah, if he does have like an empathic element to the sounds that he's now hearing, it would be easier to apply those sounds to the empathic or empathetic sensation that he's feeling. That would make sense. But that's really, honestly, that's my only complaint about the character. Again, the prosthetics, I'm willing to suspend my disbelief because of the setting. But otherwise, absolutely love the way they're handling his gradual exposure and different reactions to different senses when they're revealed. And that's really cool. That's a nice granularity. So yeah, absolutely love this character.
For me, in the first few episodes, I was a little wary. I was like, man, he's such a blank slate. I don't know but it was super interesting. I'll say that. So I hadn't decided like on the character, but I'm like, I want to see where this is going. What is this blank slate? When you get to episode 5, I think is when that blank slate starts getting drawn on. He falls in love. He feels pain for the first, emotional, that's when he starts becoming a person, and the experiences of this harsh world, good and bad, are shaping him into a character. That's kind of why I said he's kind of not really the character yet. He's becoming who he will be as he's getting his body parts back. And that is super fascinating. It's just hard for me to say I like this character when I don't know who this character is. But again, the concept of doing that is fascinating to watch.
Now, my only complaint, and I don't know if you guys caught this, there's been plenty of these demons that he fights, and he gets injured here and there. When he fights this first demon, it's coming at him from behind, and he does like this backwards like dodge move, and he's continually like moving faster than it, and he's dodging left and right, almost as if he's got like a sixth sense, like superhuman power to him. Doesn't seem to present that as overtly in his other fights. I felt that was kind of, I don't know, it was writing it intentionally for him to be super cool in the first interaction. I don't know, because that's when he has got the least amount of senses, is the mud monster.
Yeah,
I would love it if, as he gains things back, it's actually weakening him from his.
I'm wondering the same thing. Too.
Yeah. If nothing else, confusing his perception.
Right, because he hasn't worked with it before.
But even just like being able to feel pain, maybe now he has something to hesitate about. And then we obviously know when he got the hearing, that definitely messed with him. But now he's just dealing with more information, and maybe he just can't be as instinctual as he was before. But it is hard to tell, and that could have just been a cool introduction scene.
Now, did you mention that he was standing up there with one leg and one prosthetic leg?
Yeah, I did mention he had one real leg.
I don't think he's got one real leg yet, because he grows a new leg.
No, he got a leg when...
Backstory.
Yeah, in the backstory, he shows he gets a leg back before he set out on his journey.
Oh, that's right. My bad.
He does have to regrow it later, though.
I do have one question, though. Is it literally any demon he kills, he gets a body part back? It doesn't have to be the specific demon that stole it?
I really got the impression that he has to kill the demon that has the specific body part.
That was the impression I got as well.
So he just keeps happening to wander across the very specific demon he needs to find? Especially that first one he just kind of randomly encounters in the forest. It's like, oh, good, that's the leg one.
Maybe he's drawn to them, or they're drawn to him.
Or maybe the gifts were apportioned out to the demon's subordinate demons? I don't know. But
because it seems
weird.
so...
It also seems they're weak, too. Sometimes he fights like a really weak demon, it looks like that tongue demon. And it's like, that had a limb? What?
The Predator?
Yes, the Predator. Exactly.
It seems so random that there's like every time he fought any demon, it just happened to be a demon with one of his limbs. And it made me either all the demons in this entire Japan are locked up in that Hall of Hell and are now out, or
maybe it's more
literally
than 12.
Any demon works. If you kill a demon, you get a part back. Just like part of their deal.
Well, and that was another thing, is that the difference between ghoul and demon was very blurry for me. It seemed like a continuum almost, because like there
was a difference at all.
Well, like there's one character that we all really liked, a spider lady, and I really thought she was a demon the whole time, but at the end they call her a ghoul, and I'm just completely confused.
And they reference three different things. They say ghouls, monsters, and demons, and they do seem to be like a hierarchy, because at one point Dororo says, we don't just kill ghouls, we kill the monsters and the demons.
Yep.
Like those are three different classes.
The 48 demons.
It was, I think it's 48 in the original. I think it's pretty sure it's only 12 in this anime.
12.
Yeah.
Jeez, 48. That's a long anime.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're going to go forward in the story. And so basically, Hakimaru kills this monster after the thugs, or the guys, are all killed. And so he regrows his skin. His mask falls off and his skin grows back on his face. And that's when Dororo meets him, and she decides, I'm going to go with this guy, because basically she becomes his manager. Like selling him for fights. Like I said, she sees a need. He's like, he's doing services and not getting paid. I'm not getting paid, and I need someone to do these services, so I will help each other. And then in the next episode, I should also mention that when he gets his skin back, one of the demon statues in the Hall of Hell cracks open, and a landslide immediately hits Daigo's land. And he's like, oh, wait a minute. Nothing bad's happened here for like 17 years. What the heck?
Yep.
And that is a recurring thing. Every time Hakimaru gets something back, the land gets worse and worse. He's literally killing the land with his life.
I think it's really interesting, too, that with these demons that are being slain, Hakimaru is encountering them in all of the neighboring lands around Daigo.
Mm-hmm.
So,
see, that was another thing. I thought the demons were just Daigo land demons, and
nope.
Again, I'm not really sure, and it's not that big of a deal. It actually doesn't bother me that if it was just random demons giving back random body parts, but I don't know.
Well, what I think is that the agreement to make his land prosperous meant that they needed to take all the troubles that they bring outside, and so now they're going and plaguing all the surrounding places.
But how do you factor in the sand lion part? Because when he fights the sand lion and he gets his voice back, but he loses his leg, and then he kills it again and he gets his leg back?
Yeah, I just assumed that that's kind of like when you level up in a video game and it just refills your life points, you know?
Well, he didn't kill it all the way in the first encounter.
But he got his voice back.
I know that made no sense to me. I don't understand why he got his voice back.
Cut off the piece that had his voice in it.
Yeah.
So he really didn't have to kill that demon. He could have walked away at that point if it wasn't for the rice paddy.
Right.
Or his like
one thing I found interesting that you just said, where he goes, every time he kills a demon, he's killing the land. Is he killing the land, or is he killing the evil that happens to be holding back a bad thing for the land?
Well, I think that what the demons were originally doing, because the reason that they're outside right now, I think, is because Daigo made that deal. And so they're like, all right, well, we'll go sow our troubles out here. So the moment he defeats them, I think that they wind up coming back in and now causing havoc inside instead of outside.
Oh, so it's not like a
I don't
benevolent...
think they were protecting.
Oh, okay.
I think they were just moving their bad...
But if he killed them, who's coming in? Who's coming in?
Well, if they're demons, I would imagine they probably have a energetic mythological form and then a physical manifestation that, like in most stories about mythological creatures, they go back to their energy state and then they can do something there.
I mean, I get that. I'm just not sure.
Yeah.
The demons are clear. I guess what we can take from this, they're not clearly explained, and we have theories.
True. We have to come up with theories.
So yeah, we join up there. Dororo's now traveling with Hakimaru, basically just following him around. We're told by a narrator that we had already mentioned that he sees souls and in colors. Red's evil, green is godly,
Yeah,
and white is life. But even then, there's like patterns and stuff. They reach a village where they offer to do some monster slaying. We also keep seeing a almost troll-looking guy with like a giant with a bell. He keeps ringing.
It's so familiar. I know I've seen it in other mythologies.
So they go to this village. They're like, "Hey, we'll slay your monster for you." They're offered food and they stay in a barn. And this Bell, I call him Bell just because I didn't know what else to call him. He shows up, but Hakimaru doesn't attack him. He just lets him literally walk in and walk back out.
comes in, rings the bell, and then walks out.
Yeah,
Dororo's freaking out like, "That's the monster. Let's get paid. Do your thing." And it doesn't work. They then go meet the leader of the town, who's this beautiful woman who's bedridden. And Hakimaru immediately attacks her. And Dororo's like, "Oh my god, you are so blind. You are literally attacking the person who's going to pay us." They get locked up, and they get locked up with the priest. And this is when they first officially meet him. And that's when he kind of explains, he sees souls. He can see who's good and evil.
And he recognizes Hakimaru from the kid in the boat.
He does.
Yeah. I guess that makes it really clear that if you can see souls, it's easy to tell people apart as faces. Maybe easier.
Basically, it comes down to this leader of this town is actually a demon. Hakimaru sneaks through a well. The demon was coming through the well to get them, and he goes through the well back to her and fights her. They have this big fight. He ends up killing her. And we find out that the villagers knew because the demon had come. They were having to serve it. And then they started feeding visitors, and the visitors were leaving their money behind when they died. So they were becoming a rich village. And they're like, they were victims, but they were definitely benefiting from their victimhood and allowing it to happen. And the bell ringing guy was like the very first traveler, and he was trying to lead people back to the treasure and get them to, or where the money had been hidden.
He was a pilgrim. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that you mentioned that because when they were walking in, the first thing Dororo mentions is, we're probably not going to get food. They don't have rice paddies. They don't have a quarry. They must not. And then all of a sudden it's like, where do they get all their riches?
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite things about this anime is just the commentary from Dororo on villages. She looks around and she's like, okay, this is probably going to be a poor village. I'm not seeing any farming. I'm not seeing any imports or exports. And they talked at one point about like a village that got burned down just because it was in the way of a marching army, and the army just had to be like, we're getting rid of this village. It's in the way of our thing. And I guess villages just kind of pop up, and that makes sense in that time era, right? And I just never really think about that. Cities in modern times are so set. Everywhere locations are set, and there's just like 6 or 7 people get together and like, well, I built a house here. You want to build a house here? Okay, we're a village now, I guess. But then how do we make money? Oh, we didn't really think of that.
Yeah. Usually that's the sole reason why the houses pop up in the first place.
Right, because there was something to make money on.
Soil or riverbed. This was a really interesting monster because if they did do what I was suggesting earlier, and I don't know if that's really what the demons are doing, but if they are doing that, this one basically would have taken its negative influence, which creates the drought that, they're not getting any crops. So they have a need for income. It's kind of made a burrow for itself by doing that, created a receptacle among the population, basically saying, you guys need me. I'm useful. I didn't cause the drought. No way.
That is interesting. Okay, the next episode we meet Jukai, and we get his backstory. We've already kind of met him in earlier episodes, and he's in current times he's a man who goes around putting prosthetics on dead bodies. Everyone's like, "Are you the doctor who puts on prosthetics on dead bodies?" Like, yep. But we learn his backstory here.
Before we do, actually, I remember it pretty clearly because I was very curious. There's this priest going around praying over the dead bodies. He runs across him and he's like, why are you doing this? And he's like, well, I don't know what else to do with them. And I have this huge surplus. So I figured I would make these bodies whole before they're buried. And that was a really odd comment to me because I'm like, well, there's live people with missing limbs. So then we find out why he can't give them to live people.
Yeah. It seems like they're all prototypes for Hyakimaru's specifically.
Almost.
Yeah.
Jukai, like we said, he's the doctor who puts prosthetics on dead people. What did you guys think of his character before we do his backstory?
His character. Talk about a conflicted, grief-ridden, guilt-ridden individual trying to make the world a better place and just never feeling that salvation. He was the most priestly character I've seen in anime in quite some time that was attempting to right the wrongs that he felt he was a part of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems to be a pretty common thread in this anime in particular of
redemption.
Redemption and mending one's past misdeeds that usually are done because the person sees it as the only way to survive. Right? We see that with the sword guy. We see that with this guy. We see that even with Daigo, possibly, as his motivation for his people and his land. Again and again, these characters, what will they do in order to survive? How far will they go? What atrocities will they commit? And for at least some of them, they have a really interesting and compelling redemption arc, or at least an attempt to redeem themselves, if not to just try and kill themselves because they don't believe they're redeemable, which this guy does, and he tries to do that, and that fails a lot. He fails.
Was it? He's like obviously the Buddha had different plans for me.
Yep.
The fact that he could have just been, and from my understanding in the source material, he is just kind of the doctor who gives the parts to this conflicted character trying to do right, did horrible things, is super interesting. He's not a ton in the story, but I'm super interested in when he comes back because they're clearly not done with him. I don't think we would have gotten as many introductions for him as we did. So I'm really interested to see where this character goes and what happens with him. I'm going to skip over a little bit of his backstory. Basically, he was an executioner. He hung people on
crucifix.
He crucified people until his wife got killed because she was in the way, and then he had
it was his daughter, but it could have been his wife.
Was it his daughter?
I don't think it's explained.
Okay, someone he loved.
Yeah.
And so he walked away and he tried to commit suicide. He goes over a cliff and he ends up living, becomes a doctor giving prosthetics. His assistant finds out his role in the war, and he was on the other side. And his assistant spares him because he is helping people, but takes off his own prosthetic that had been built for him throws it aside, picks up like a stick for a cane, and is like, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
And this sends Jukai kind of back towards, okay, well, I guess my life doesn't have purpose. And then he falls. Now, when I watched the Mother's Basement video about the adaptation, he pointed out there was a Buddha statue right where he fell, or a Buddha marker,
Yeah.
which is pretty interesting. But yeah, he falls and comes across a little boat with a little, gross looking baby in it.
Yep.
And he notices the baby wants to live. And so he raises that baby and builds him prosthetics and skin masks and stuff like that. And this is basically how Hakimaru survived and got to be who he is today so far. Taught him how to fight. Eventually demons started coming around. And then when they realized, like, oh, you killed this demon and your leg came back, you should probably go kill demons.
Yeah.
And built him his sword arms, the prosthetics where his hands can come off and they have swords. Now, guys, it looks cool in the animation, but I just think about, like, if I had swords coming out of my elbows and I'd just be like trying to chop stuff and
Yeah. Leveraging.
Is it cool? I can't tell if it's cool or not.
No, it's all in the animation because, like, the leverage and the lack of the elbow joint just. They should have at least given him an elbow joint if they were going to do this.
I do love how the base of the sword just sticks out of his elbows. That it's not like a special blade made for his arm. They literally just took sword blades out of the handle and into the prosthetic, and now part of it is still jutting out from the back. I think that's really cool. But when I think about like you said, the leverage of using those weapons, and I'm like, I don't feel like that's more efficient than the sword you can still hold in your hands.
Yep.
And also, you lose so much distance between you and the blade.
I mean, he has super strength, so maybe he doesn't need the leverage and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
He also carries a sword.
Yeah, so that they don't have to deal with the future problem of him growing arms and not having these.
Yeah, they do show off, like, him using a regular sword every once in a while. I'm like, oh, that's probably clever, because I'm sure that's going to come up at some point.
Yep.
I hope those swords fall off before his arm grows back, though. I'm sorry.
He'll become X23 or whatever it was.
When we come back to Hakimaru, he can now feel pain from the last demon he killed. That was how that episode ended.
I'd want that back last. I'd be like, give me all the other stuff.
Okay, and episode 4. Oh, actually, there was one character who we saw brief glimpses of. Hakimaru has a brother now, Tohamaru. And while we saw a training montage for Hakimaru, we saw some training of Tohamaru living his pampered life, but learning swordplay and how to be a lord, basically. So we need to talk about his character, because I was completely blown away by what they did with this character so far. I thought it was going to be I'm a brat and I'm entitled and I'm clearly a villain because I grew up rich, and he was not. He is complex. He is deep. So what did you guys think of him?
Loved his character. Everything I was hoping for in a feudal Japan monarch style family. Because that's what it always is. It's always I was pampered my whole life. You are dirt. I get to squish you. And he's not like that at all. In fact, he goes out of his way to help a village later on because it's his people.
I love the servant who's like, why would you help these people? Because they're my people. If I'm not helping them, what's my purpose?
Yeah, he takes a very similar stance to his father. In fact, he's a great reflection of his father, because that's what we normally see in other anime. Is it's not a reflection of the father. His father's trying to do their best, but his son's a piece of dirt.
Yeah,
He's complex. He wants to do best by his father. He knows his mom's hiding something from him. Even the two servants that are assigned to him are like, you can't compare your swordplay to someone else that's been in war for who knows how long.
Yeah.
Cool your jets. You're good at swordplay, but let's calm down a little.
Yep. Yeah, it's actually really interesting. I liked when you said that he's a good reflection of his father, and he is that opportunity, Troy, you mentioned earlier. It's like a purification. So in the best possible light of Daigo, he's a reflection of like the most beneficial, benefit of the doubt that we could give to Daigo.
Yeah,
what his motivations are.
Doing an evil deed for the greater good, where what does morals tell us to do?
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that before he even is confronted with a decision to make in this regard, we get to know him and we get to see him stand up for what's right, so that we have no doubt that, yes, what is in front of him as the most important priority is the welfare of his people. There is no real doubt of well, now that I'm saying that, I do remember, like you were saying, Jason, how he's very competitive. So there is the potential for a bit of competitive, corruption there in regards to his motivations. But boy, if I had to rate it with numbers, I'd probably give it like a 95-5. So I really like him as a character.
Another thing I thought they were going to do, and it kind of felt like they were doing this early, is mommy never loved me as much as she loved you, so I must kill you. I thought for sure that's where we were going.
Same here.
And in a moment where, everyone's in the same area together, he calls out, "No, wait, that's my brother. We can't." There's no instant hate for him or anything like that because of, well, mommy loved you and didn't love me. That doesn't come into play. It's almost 100% what's best for my land versus what's the right thing to do, and what is my moral responsibility as a lord. So I was wary of this character going in for a long time, but man, the payoff in the last couple episodes is fantastic.
Well, I love how like he's even writing in like this near fit, like childish fit, and he's like, "Wait, my mother's been nothing but kind to me." Like thinking back, like, yeah, she's hiding something, but she's loved me just as much as any mother has loved their child.
Yeah, I realize I'm being immature here.
yeah. And he even complains to his dad. He's like, "That's my brother. I have a brother." Like he's just as conflicted.
Yeah.
So I'm actually really excited to see where this relationship goes as the next set comes.
I think that the opening did him a disservice by showing him at the end of it already missing an eye and clearly standing in the antagonist pose. And so I really hope that's a red herring, but I doubt it.
Yeah, I think his path is chosen, but who knows at this point. But like I said, the last couple of episodes of these first 12, the work that they did with him is great. I'm gonna kind of speed through episode 4. This is the demon sword that was hungry for blood. Basically, a guy is murdering people because his sword is possessed and wants to drink blood. They free him of the sword, and Dororo ends up, getting a hold of it and being controlled by it. But the sword just wants to go back to him so he can go resume killing. And they're able to defeat him, and his poor sister, who was happy to have her brother back from war, is left behind, and it's a very sad story. The best part of this episode, or the part that stood out to me the most, was when he had to do the executions. He had to execute these soldiers, and he didn't want to, and the general who's making him was like, "Here, use my sword." And he goes to do it. He finally could, so he doesn't die himself. Yeah, and it's dull, and it doesn't go all the way through, and he has to like start hacking. And I was like, that was dark. That was some dark stuff.
That's a Theon Greyjoy moment. It's also, I think they were construction workers because they built the castle, and then he's like, "Yeah, other people will figure out the weaknesses if you guys expose them, so I have to kill you."
Yeah, it wasn't they were enemies; it was that they were liabilities or possible liabilities.
Exactly.
And the guy was like, "But they're honorable. They did what we asked. There's no reason to execute them." He's like, "Well, then you can kill yourself, or you can kill them." And so to survive, he did it. But the rest of the episode was kind of just episodic, and one of my issues with this series is how episodic it was. Some of the storylines are really good. The overarching storyline is really good, but there was still a little bit of like, here's a story beginning, end, and it's not really important. It's like, they had its moments, but it wasn't great.
I was about to say, I've seen plenty of demon sword or possessed sword style of stories, and this was pretty bland when it comes to sword wants to eat blood. But
The only thing that was interesting is that the brother was committed to it even after he was freed. He was still like, nope, that's what I do. I hold that sword and I kill people.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And how much he changed, and yet there was still a sliver of him that
He was happy when he died.
Origami. Yeah, and it made the origami for his sister in order to cheer her up. Like there was a tiny piece of him, even though he wouldn't stay with it. He wouldn't do anything more than that. It's like that little boy was still alive that did that before.
Killing this sword is what gives Hakimaru his hearing back.
Yeah.
I think one of the interesting parts, it showed that Hakimaru wasn't an indiscriminate demon slayer. Like, he took care to disarm the person he was attacking before trying to destroy the sword. Like when Dororo was holding it, not once did he go for Dororo's body.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And Dororo didn't know that.
Poor Dororo.
He's a little freaked out.
Yeah.
When we come back to the episode, apparently hearing sucks when you haven't ever heard anything before. He can't sleep. What's funny is Dororo comes up. He's like, "It's so quiet in this forest," and yet Hakimaru's sitting there like, "Ah!" Not screaming. He has no voice yet, but freaking out because just everything's so loud. The crackle of the fire, the birds, bugs chirping. Even when Dororo speaks, Hakimaru's like, no speaking. That's so loud. They wrap a cloth around his ears. They try to help him. They get attacked by a monster bird, and he just gets whooped on. And the blind priest actually happens to show up and saves them, and they try to help him. The next morning, though, he hears something he does like for the first time, and when he goes to it, it's a young girl singing in a river. And this starts the Mio storyline. So Mio is Hakimaru's love interest, and not in many episodes, but definitely has a very lasting effect on this story. In fact, she's in the OP almost as much as she's in the whole show. Yeah. So what do you guys think of her?
Again, another nicely complex character that it was more than just I'm girl, therefore I'm love interest. Like, she had a purpose, she had a plan, she had future plans. She was doing what everyone else was doing in anime, trying to justify something terrible in order for the payoff at the end, right?
Yep.
I really liked her in this story. I wish she was in it a little longer. I think it would have had a little more impact. But I thought they did a decent job with it.
I really enjoyed the cause and effect relationship and how everything just kind of bounced off of everything else to create a much worse situation than before he showed up. So, like, yes, she was already like whoring herself out to some of the soldiers in order to feed the orphans that she was taking care of, right? And she had an end goal of getting enough rice, seed rice that she could actually plant and grow rice from in order to feed them. And she could stop doing that at that point. But because she kind of gets encouraged by seeing the extent to which Hakimaru will put himself in danger and push himself, single-mindedly in order to accomplish something good, she decides that she's not putting enough effort into her own attempts to get, take care of these kids and get that rice paddy. So she pushes herself too far because of that, and gets involved in such a way that it spells her own doom. And I think that is such a fascinating irony that they played into there. And there's a second layer of irony where she's telling Hakimaru, and I don't know if he can understand it yet, but she's telling him, if you die, you lose. Don't lose. You can't lose. If you die, you lose. But then she does die. But then Dororo says, no, she didn't lose because she got the seeds. But all the people she was going to feed with the seeds also died. So like it's just such this, it's like it was intended to be a confusing mess of like, these characters do not know what's right. They are simply spewing out whatever they need to themselves and to each other for the sake of survival, just to encourage each other. And it's really interesting.
Mio really shows off how much the world itself of this anime is a character. It's where they live, how they live there, and how hard it is to survive there. Informs so much about it affects every character, and Mio is really a big result of that. Like you said, she's selling herself to soldiers. Clearly not happy about it. Very ashamed because when she finds out Hakimaru can see into souls, she like flinches back and pulls back. Even though he clearly sees she has a beautiful soul and is drawn to it. And then, there's in this storyline, they befriend the orphans and they're actually staying with them. Hakimaru is clearly not at his best. He's hurt. His hearing is still bugging him. But him and the priest try to clear this farmland of the antlion we had mentioned earlier. They have some success. He gets his voice back, but he loses a leg. And things just keep snowballing and getting worse. I think Dororo's reaction to finding out Mio's job was really interesting, especially when they had the conversation. She's like, I noticed that you clearly figured out what I'm doing and you're clearly not comfortable being around me. But then, he mentions like, my mama did every job ever to help us survive except for that one job. But my mama's dead. So maybe she should have done that one job. Just like you said, Jeremy just pointed out, like, it's not survival is really more important than right or wrong to so much of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of grays. It's also, it gets another layer when you do get confirmation that Dororo is actually a girl.
Right.
Because it means something different when you think back to this scene of Dororo seeing this. It's from a different perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
Very
interesting.
When I found out she was Dororo's a girl, the scene I remembered is the when they're talking, the way she grabs the edge of her tunic, skirt thing, and just like bunches it up, and just that how squeamish she is, how scared she is, and when just talking about it with Mio, and it made more sense now because as a girl she probably was putting herself. Do I have to do that to survive? And that's clearly what's going through her head. Right. A whole nother layer to that scene. Once you know the secret, or had been smart enough to figure out the secret from the super obvious character design.
Obvious girl is obvious.
Eventually, Hakimaru goes back to fight the antlion before he's supposed to, before he's ready to. And he does manage to kill it, and he gets his leg back, which again is very confusing with the rules we've been establishing with the demons. Apparently, if any demon takes any part of him, he can get it back by killing it. And is that true for everybody in the world, or just him?
It's a Hyakimaru power.
Yes. Well, I mean, he's got to have some sort of superhuman acity to him because he fashions himself a new crappy prosthetic with a blade inside.
Yeah.
And it's so fresh, but like the stump is fresh, but he's able to then wear this thing. Like, and put weight on it? Really?
Yep.
Okay.
To be honest, that stump was hard to look at. They really showed a mangled leg. It was it wasn't just like a clean stump. It was like, this is torn in a chunk, and it was rough.
Yeah.
But when him and Dororo returns home, Mio had been spotted because she'd been going to both armies. She'd been suspected of being a spy by one, Daigo's side, actually, because Daigo is about to have another war with a neighbor because of the demons. So again, Hakimaru is actually kind of responsible for all this in a way, going back to the ideas of greater good. But yeah, they come back and the orphans and Mio are being slaughtered by these soldiers. And this is the first time Hakimaru kills people. He goes into a rage and just starts slicing and dicing. And there is no resistance to those blades.
That's another thing that always strikes me as interesting is how effective his blades are at cutting. And his brothers are too, but it seems to really dwarf the effectiveness of other soldiers' blades. And I don't know, maybe it's just his super strength, but I'm wondering if there's something more.
Leverage. No,
Yeah, exactly. It's that leverage.
it's like choking up.
Really hope we're not making fun of people with missing
Well,
arms. I don't mean to say anything about that at all.
I think most people with missing arms do not wear prosthetics with blades in them. So
Right.
I think we're good.
To be clear, I'm not speaking about anybody else but Hakimaru right now.
One of a kind.
This ending really builds on what the priest has been saying. Is right now he is a beast sleeping in a cave, but when that beast comes out, meaning when he becomes the person he's going to become, is he going to come out the thing that was made by demons, or the man that he was born as? And Dororo, seeing him in the rage murdering people, is like, oh, that's the demon.
You gotta stop now.
She manages to stop him, and one guy does get away, which turned out to come back into the story. And stop him. And they get, like Jeremy pointed out, like, they got the rice, so they carry the rice with them now as a remembrance of, and to plant it, right? They hope to plant it someday.
Probably. I mean,
I don't remember that.
after he gets all of the limbs, maybe.
Yeah.
So then that super depressing storyline's done.
Yeah.
And then we come to, and again, I'm going to kind of jump through this one, but it is, I think, a lot of our favorite of the episodes where they've come across a spider ghoul and they save a man from her, and she gets away. But then this villager finds her in the form of a beautiful woman, takes her home and cares for her. And they she ends up kind of falling in love with him. Like he follows the teachings of the Buddha. So like he finds a cockroach and he helps it get outside to safety. And she's like, "Well, you didn't just kill the cockroach." He's like, "No, that's not my way. I like to save things." And so
he specifically calls out all life is life, and all life should be precious.
Right.
Yeah.
Which her as a monster, usually humans.
A demon ghoul monster.
Her as something that preys on humans and is, there
we go,
would be attacked by humans. That really touches her. She's eating rice, but it's not really filling her nutritionally because she needs human. And she goes over to actually kill him in the night, and then chooses not to because she hears his stomach rumbling because he's been feeding her all his food. At the same time, Dororo and Hakimaru are trying to find the kidnapper, and they think it's the monster, but it ends up actually being the guy because he smuggles people out of this quarry village because everyone keeps dying in the quarry. This all comes to a head where everyone runs into each other with the guards at the same time. Hakimaru is attacking the monster. The monster's just trying to escape with the man. And she says, like, I don't actually kill the people. I just eat them so that I can eat them again later.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think she was lying?
I do.
Okay. It doesn't really matter. All that matters is that he believes her, but I had that thought of, like, I don't know if it's real or not.
Well, there's one point at the very end where she says that again, and he goes, "From now on, right?" And she goes, "Yes." And I'm like, okay, that was them. That was him calling her out on it, but being okay with it because she's decided to change. That's how I like it.
Yeah. This was the moment where I was like, okay, there must be some sort of distinction between the hierarchy of, monsters, because Hakimaru sees her soul go from red to white.
Yeah.
And also, like, it's like, if he lets her get away and she's a demon and she's got one of his body parts, does that mean he's just gonna be missing that for the rest of eternity?
Never have it. Yeah, so she must not have been a priority target anyways.
Well, she must not have been a proper demon either.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they call her a ghoul. Specifically because Dororo says, "Wow, never thought I'd see a ghoul in love with a human." So it wouldn't be possible for her to have his limb or anything. But yeah, I was wondering the same thing. I was like, I don't know. I'm confused.
To be honest, I love the story, and one of the reasons is because it felt like a story that would come out of The Witcher. The theme of those games is, what's the difference between men and monsters when men are acting monstrous? And, here is a person born monstrous who chooses to be good. And then we see from Hakimaru actually becomes good. The soul changes. She's no longer a monster.
I thought the theme of Witcher was just like collect all the cards and bang all the monster women.
You don't bang the monster women, you bang the witch women because they can't get pregnant or have STDs. Come on, man.
That's right. Well, I thought he was the one that couldn't get anybody pregnant, so he's just like whatever he wants.
Right, that's also true, but that's also why they tend to go with witches because there will never be any expectations.
Oh, there you go. Okay. There's a logic to it.
And also, open relationships are A-okay.
Yep.
Except for with redheads.
Right. Specific redhead.
All right. The next one is another episodic one. It's about the evil cloud that comes onto a village and rains ash down on them. So they prepare a bride sacrifice. And basically, Dororo and Hakimaru get involved. They just, because of a feral child that's trying to stop it.
Yeah, this is so weird.
That they befriend and agree to save.
Hold on. Let's be honest. First, it was Dororo thought like a happy bride was about to be murdered. Yeah. And then what really drew Dororo in is the feral child pulled up a piece of gold and said, "Oh yeah, I have a bunch of this."
And grubs. Don't forget the gold was underneath a handful of grubs. He's like, I can pay you this.
Yep. Yum, yum, yum.
This ends up being a really difficult battle for Hakimaru when they go to save the girl who doesn't want to go because she wants to save the village. Because it's a giant centipede flying monster, but it makes a cloud.
Like from Breath of the Wild, actually.
Yeah.
But with gross faces.
The cloud to Hakimaru looks like everything else. So it basically, he's just in a fog of red and he can't distinct the monster from the cloud and he just can't see anything. So the girl actually gets eaten and the other three manage to get away. And they come up with a plan to kill the monster, but they can't use Hakimaru, who we see sitting by the cave just like throwing rocks. Slowly, which I was like, you're doing a thing. I can tell you're doing a thing right now.
Yeah.
So
if that's a way, an indicator to tell just how quickly he can learn, then I can buy him learning language that quickly.
Yeah. And obviously his hearing is now being useful.
Right.
The plan to kill the monster goes awry for the two kids, but Hakimaru shows up and shoots it with arrows, which he uses to hear where it is. And he cuts an eye. Dororo jumps on top of the monster's head, ties herself to it, and starts shouting like, its eye is right next to me. But then she gets knocked out. He gets super worried about her. This is what you were referring to earlier, right, Jeremy?
Yep.
Where he's clearly... This is kind of the first sign of affection of like, oh, this person matters to me. And because he screams, doesn't he?
Yeah. It's like, this was seriously a tug on the heartstrings moment for me because the way he's screaming, the voice actor did such a good job. It's not just a simple, I need the signal. Where is the signal? Like with any sense of irritation or anything. It sounds more like he is scared that something happened to Dororo. And
where are you?
Yeah, exactly. Like he still knows that he needs to get to where Dororo is in order to get the eye, but that doesn't sound like the priority from the tone of his scream. It sounds more like, are you okay? Dororo, 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 Dororo. But since he can't speak, it's just like the wailing of an animal. And yeah, this was really, really touching.
She does manage to wake up just in time and tell him where the eye is. He cuts the eye. They go out up into the sunlight, which turns out to be the monster's weakness. He goes into its other mouth. It's like a two mouth, and then just like
cat dog
cuts it from mouth to mouth.
Yep.
And then that part didn't make sense to me at all.
And then the girl falls out of it. She's still alive. So this is specifically what I was referencing when I was saying like there's some stuff that's like really light, girls getting eaten by monsters and then not dying.
Like
it does.
How long she sat in the stomach acid too.
It's so different from how dark they've been willing to go. I was like, it's weird you wanted to give these characters a happy ending when you clearly showed that everyone here is Game of Thronesing it at this point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, she sat in that stomach of that centipede the whole time that the kids came up with the plan, and he's throwing rocks and
they
everything.
slept. They went to bed and cried all night. And
But she didn't have any signs of digestion. She didn't have there was no indication
if this demon even has a normal digestion system like we understand it.
Right, because it only came around once in a while to have one bride, so it probably is a very slow digestion. It's like the Sarlacc.
Maybe it doesn't eat them. Maybe that's just its mode of transportation, and it takes them back.
It's still alive.
Yeah, they're all still alive. All the other women are still alive. It's just adding to its harem.
I thought it was gonna
harem.
I was hoping it would turn out to be a nice demon. I was like, no, I'm just rescuing them from this horrible village.
Exactly.
In the next one, Dororo gets sick, and this is another nice moment because Hakimaru, who's now learned to say her name and is actually saying some words, is like running around, Dororo, hot, help, and everyone's like, yeah, I'm a farmer, dude. I'm
sorry for your loss.
Yeah. They do come across a nun, priestess,
a nern.
Yeah,
priestess.
I was gonna say a nurse, and I was like, no, that doesn't make sense either. A nun doesn't really make sense because I don't think it's Catholic.
Definitely not a battle nurse.
But they take Dororo to a temple and help her get better. And this is where we get her backstory, which I thought was a really cool backstory. Her parents were bandits, but they only attacked. So they were like honorable bandits because they'd been screwed by the Lord and the samurai. So they attack samurai to teach them a lesson. Except for they have this 1 second right hand man, and this is a little cliche. My right hand man turned out to be a dillweed, and he betrays them. He's like, "Hey, now that we're all powerful, we should get in with the Lord." They're like, "No, we hate the Lord. Remember, we don't like the samurai and the Lord." He's like, "Oh yeah, okay," and then he betrays them like the next day.
Yep.
They don't kill the dad right away. They shoot his legs, but they end up healing. The family is like scavenging. The part where they're on a battlefield searching dead bodies for food, and they come across a soldier eating other soldiers' corpses.
Yes.
Man, that was rough. And
then
then
how does that fit in the same story as the girl surviving the centipede?
Right.
Yeah.
And then what? Oh man, this actually gets really dark. They come across a village being attacked. They try to get out of there, but the samurai there recognize the dad, and they attack him, and he ends up killing them all, but dying himself. So now the mom and Dororo are on their own. They get told about samurai handing out food nearby, so they go there because they're basically starving. They're waiting in line, and guess who runs it? It's the right-hand man who betrayed them, and he sees them. He's like, oh, things didn't turn out well for you guys at all. And he just kind of mocks them.
Yeah.
And then they run out of bowls to give people for food, and the mom comes up and is like, just put it in my hands. And it's like boiling. Mm-hmm. They show it in the pot, and he's like, the right-hand man's like, yeah, do it. So they pour boiling soup into her hand, and when she feeds Dororo out of her burning hands,
yum yum,
who has to blow on it? Like the poor kid's like blowing on it, trying to cool it down so she can eat it. While it's
Yep.
And then they go a little farther, and the mom dies in a field of red lilies,
which is why Dororo hates him.
Yep. And Dororo, and she tells Dororo, don't lose to the samurai in the wars. Just don't lose to him.
And also because Dororo was being taken care of by this nurse, the nurse changed her clothes.
Yep.
And this is where the facade falls apart.
That's when we are told that she is a girl.
Yeah.
And she's really hoping that Hakimaru doesn't know, but he does.
I really liked the exchange. It cracked me up because if you think about it, like, does it really matter to Hakimaru?
No.
I mean, he sees your soul and doesn't really care one way or the other. So, like, it's great because in this, he says absolutely nothing. It's almost like you're back to Hakimaru in the first episode where he's like a completely blank slate where he's like, that was an inconsequential bit of information for you. And it moves on. It was really entertaining. Well handled. It fit his character.
And then we come to the beginning of the end, which starts with a crab monster. Looks like a crab. These people like the monster.
It tastes like crab, looks like people, talks like people, something like that.
We see this crab monster kill a man in a lake. This ends up actually being Tohamaru's story. So he's trying to figure out what's going on with his dad, who's getting ready for another war with another clan, separate from the one we already saw. And Daigo learns from the Hall of Hell and the demons. They tell him that the baby survived, which seems odd. They waited 17 years to reveal that information, but hey, we're down like 10 guys. Should we tell him now? Should we tell him that we're getting slaughtered? Not very smart demons, I guess.
Well, the question I have, if we're following the logic of the old demon story, is that if he trapped them in these statues or this Hall of Hell, and every time he kills a demon in its physical form, that thing cracks, is that releasing the demon back out to the wild?
I think that's Jeremy's theory.
Yeah, that would make sense to me.
No wonder they wouldn't tell him.
That's true. That's true. They'd be escaping his trap. I didn't think of it as his trap. Yeah.
You think they want the baby to kill him?
Yeah.
No, but I think it'd be a win-win situation. They either get the baby's parts and do with it what they want, or if they're killed, they're free to do what they want elsewise.
They do point out, like, what would a demon want with an eye? Like, what benefit does that give the demon? They're like, well, I don't know. So maybe we'll learn that in the next half.
Maybe it gives them the ability to take a physical form.
Yeah, that could be something human.
Oh, that I like.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. All right. The Tohamaru, he basically gets his father's spy and like interrogates him, and he learns there's a baby. So he goes and talks to his dad about the baby. He's like, I know about the baby. And his dad's like, you don't know. Get out of here. So Tohamaru runs away to his favorite village to visit and his friends, servants.
Yeah. Which, again, it doesn't seem like they're both boys. One of them seems like a girl.
Yeah, I thought one is a girl.
Yeah, one is a girl.
They call themselves brothers.
But I think in arms.
You just, okay.
They did say brother. I remember them saying that, but yeah, I never questioned that was a girl.
Yeah.
I've always thought it was a girl, but that threw me off when they said that. So maybe it's just in arms.
Or maybe she just refers to herself as a boy to fill the role of the...
Maybe, but in the flashback of when, going to get him when he ran away, she had long hair and she was in a kimono.
Did she? I didn't catch that.
Yeah. They were in more regular clothes when they went to go get him.
Anyway, in this village is where the crab monster is.
This is important stuff, Troy.
We're running low on time, yeah.
I know.
What does that matter to you?
And Tohamaru, this is where he agrees to help the villagers. He's like, I'm ruler of this land, and this is my responsibility. So they go out in boats and they fight the crab monster. They tie the boats to trees so that they can't get sucked into its vortex, its whirlpool it makes. They have some success in damaging it, but then it goes underwater and starts attacking them, and it kind of becomes a stalemate, so they retreat. Then he comes up with this plan for this little outlet in the water over a hill, and they basically create sluices.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what those really are. I mean, I get the concept. I saw the show, and I know.
Sluice is when no.
So basically, they get the crab monster into this area. They drain it using the sluices, and then they're able to fight it toe to toe. But the crab figures this out and breaks the thing, and then floods it back in with everyone in there, and is actually eating one of the buddies. I wrote down the names. I forget. It was the bigger guy, not the girl. And Tohamaru's like rushing to get there to save him, and then suddenly Hakimaru appears and just kills the crab right when Tohamaru is also striking a blow. And then they meet. This is their official meeting, and Dororo basically explains, "We're monster hunters. We slay everything, and you should pay us for that."
What shocked me is that he does.
Yeah, he does. He's like,
"You're
right. I do need to pay you."
What did he get a body part from the crab?
Not that I noticed.
I don't remember.
It's some kind of weird shake or something, but they never talked about any kind of body part.
He has a nose now, and he loves smelling things. That was back when he was we got the Dororo
And he got his
backstory.
ears.
He has
Yep.
his ears.
So
He's got his skin, he's got the nerves, and he's got the leg.
yeah, I didn't notice the crab give him any particular thing. So maybe the crab wasn't a demon.
Which would make sense with Jeremy's theory, because the demons all left this land due to the deal. It wouldn't make sense that this would be attacking the
That makes
lake
sense.
in Daigo's
Mhm.
land. It would just be a random monster that happened to appear. And that's why Daigo's land doesn't get attacked very often by demons.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, after they get paid, Dororo and Hakimaru go to the nearby really rich village and they go see a play. There's a crazy woman talking about demon babies on the street. They don't pay attention to that.
Pay
And
no
they meet,
attention to the crazies.
they meet the priest who's like, hey, you killed people. That's probably not good. I'm going to go check out the Hall of Hell. And they learn about this cursed wall. There was a wall built between the lands of the two armies, and now only like one section of it is still standing, but the other army kills people up against it as like a taunt, and now it's become possessed by monsters at night. So the villagers are worrying about like the droughts and stuff. So when Dororo hears it, she's like, money opportunity. We'll go kill the cursed thing and they'll pay us. So they go to do that. Meanwhile, at the same time, I believe, is when Daigo learns about, hey, guy with prosthetics and missing body parts kind of showed up, and he's like, oh, that's my kid. I need to go deal with that. And Tohamaru figures out everything at this point.
He goes. He thinks he.
No, he overhears him. He literally confronts his mom, like, you did what to a baby?
Yeah.
And then he goes into the town to start asking, hey, have you seen a weird guy?
But Daigo also shows up and is like, no, you don't understand. It was for the good of the land. And Tohamaru was like, I don't really believe you. But yeah, you're right. He goes into town,
Confronts the crazy lady.
talks to the crazy lady who was the midwife's assistant or one of the attendants helping with the birth. I thought that was really cool that random character from the first episode had a purpose in this story.
I also think it would be great if the baby she was holding was nothing more than like a doll or like rocks.
It was a rock. It was a red rock.
Oh, that's right. It was a rock.
Yeah, it was.
That's why I liked it so much.
Yeah.
Like a nasty, red, bloody baby head. Yep.
At the wall, they meet Dororo and Hakimaru meet a boy from the village that was built on the other side of the wall before the war got bad, named Sakiroku. Doesn't matter. He's not around very long.
Pretty sure.
He was on the wrong side of the wall when the attack happened, and his parents were on the other side. Now he wants to get back to his village, but because of the evil army watches from the other side and kills anyone who tries to cross, and then there's monsters at night, he can't do it. So Dororo and Hakimaru are like, yeah, we'll totally. Well, Hakimaru just sat there and stared blankly at things, like he does. They offer to help him. Hakimaru fights Foxfire spirits that form into one giant one. The kid starts running on his own when he sees the opportunity, and Dororo goes after him to try to help, and they both end up getting captured by the other army. And then Daigo shows up and confronts his son, and I loved how this played out, because instead of like immediately attacking, he's kind of like, how is this still happening? How are you alive? And then Hakimaru like jumps on his horse, like, what are you? Why do you look familiar? Where do I know you from?
He sees his spirit or his soul, and it's very similar to other like tainted souls that he's seen.
Yeah, it had the fire.
Red going through and the fire.
But then Daigo's forces attack him, so he runs away and hides in the forest. But basically, everyone's figuring out who's who at this point, and it's not very much longer till he realizes that's his dad. And
you guys did notice that, like the graphic that they used to depict the souls of all of Daigo's family, including Hakimaru, have like this really weird
shape in it,
surreal, Yeah, like constantly shifting blacks and whites, not just the standard white cloud that they have.
Yes.
And that's very interesting to me because it almost seems like it has something to do with their interaction, their agreement, their contract. They're all bound to having interacted directly with those demons, and it screwed up their auras somehow. But if you looked at the mother and the brother, neither one of them had those red dots you guys were mentioning showing the corruption, but the father does. And yeah, so that's going to be interesting because I'll bet you that the brother gets the red dots pretty soon.
I think so. We learned from the priest visiting the Hall of Hell that there's still one demon locked away. And it's interesting how they depict it because of all the statues, it's behind all the statues and bigger than all the statues. And it kind of feels like the boss, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really interested to see how that comes into play. And I wonder if there's still another deal to be struck. Especially because of that Buddha statue at the end of this.
Cracking even more.
Yeah, and all the green fades from it, so all the God.
That's what I wanted to see what your theories on that. What does that mean? Because that means that statue had some sort of divinity to it to begin with. It wasn't just a piece of wood.
I completely believe what Jeremy said, that is what kept the last demon from getting out and taking probably Hakimaru's life. Like, it would have killed Hakimaru.
Yeah, there's somewhere in the beginning it says that the statue sacrificed itself to save the baby and to stop the last one. I remember them saying something like that.
So now that is broken,
the
boss gets to come out, right?
Yeah, that's what I would think. Yeah. The question is, like, why does the divinity withdraw itself from that statue? Has it decided that enough has been done to right things to where they should now be able to resolve themselves in a way that's accordance with fate?
Or it's tied to mom.
That could be. Mom dies and the motivation to intercede disappears.
Or the channel to provide protection.
Wait, are you asking why the statue broke?
Yeah.
Why the green fled from the broken statue?
I think because the mom offered herself to the demons.
Oh yeah, because she said, "Take my flesh."
Yeah, so I think she gave up on the Buddha, and
that's a really good observation. Yeah,
because it was her statue, and like it's always in her room, right?
And then that's the end of the 12 episodes, right?
Kind of, because I did jump around a little bit. Basically, Dororo gets out of her cell and rushes back to Hakimaru for help. And this is actually where Tohamaru confronts his parents, and at the same time, Hakimaru like comes to their house and like jumps on the wall and sees and hears, that's my mom, that's my dad, that's my brother, and then the guards all attack him and he runs away. And this is where Tohamaru says, "That's not my brother you're attacking. What are we doing?" And that's when he really has to start asking himself, okay, my dad clearly did a horrible thing. He goes to the Hall of Hell too and gets pushed out. By the demons. The demons literally knock him away. But he's trying to answer the question, like, what do we do? What's the right thing to do here? This all ends up back at that wall. The kid from before is tied to it. He didn't end up getting executed. He's still alive. So Dororo is trying to save him. Hakimaru is trying to fight the fox spirits. And Daigo's army comes up. And in the army is the guy who killed Mio. And Hakimaru sees that, starts going crazy, and Dororo's like, nope, not letting that thing out again. Staying human. Tohamaru shows up next, and he's like, what my dad did to you is wrong, but letting this land die would also be wrong. So I'm sorry, but I have to kill you. And they start fighting. Meanwhile, the fox spirit's also attacking. Hakimaru kills the fox spirit. It goes into the wall.
Yeah, I don't think he killed it, did he?
No, he was doing a lot of damage and it fled.
Yeah.
It fled into the wall.
Yeah, they were stunned too.
Yeah. Okay. And that's when the mom shows up and she begs forgiveness from Hakimaru and then offers herself to the demons in his place, hoping to try to find a way to fix it. Which is an interesting different approach, right? Than what Tohama was like, I have to kill you to fix things, and then she's willing to self-sacrifice to get things back to how they should have been, which is not what Daigo and Tohama aren't choosing, right? There's no self-sacrifice, no martyrdom here,
Right.
And then the wall glows and then breaks, and then everyone runs away.
Yeah.
Great.
Yep.
Weirdly, at the end, the kid's mom is still alive that they saved. Again,
That was another really weird one.
Random happy moment for somebody, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the kid said that he was going to stick around with them and travel with them. And so...
Well, they offered.
We just needed a way to get rid of him.
That's what I'm thinking.
Well, what would be more fitting with the rest of the anime is to have him die.
I thought he was going to.
I did too.
But basically, Dororo tells Hakimaru, I'm sorry about your family being so messed up, but you got me, and they walk on. And so that is where we leave off. We will be finishing the rest of that. But so last thoughts on this ending before we go to reviews?
I want to know where it's going. I have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I really hope they continue to explore the morality of greater good, doing something horrible and evil for a greater good, and if that's okay.
It's really hard to explore something like that without eventually having a final statement of approval for one method or another. But the exploration of it's really interesting. I'd like to see what the difference of the result is between the mother's approach to the brother's approach, especially.
I also really hope they go into with Hakimaru, for everyone, you did something horrible to survive. So if Hakimaru's survival is dooming this land, is that okay for him? Is that the moral thing to do?
Is undoing something that was unjust that dooms people,
everybody else,
okay.
Right. And then what kind of character he becomes, I'm really interested to see. All right, so let's go ahead and do our reviews for this section. Now, this is not our final reviews for the whole anime because we do have another half to watch. Jeremy, what do you think of it?
I got to give it a 5. I really like it. I mean, the criticisms that I have for it are extremely minor. I love the way that Hyakimaru's gradual exposure to the various senses and to becoming more human have been explored, and how it's very different for the different senses. And some of them are very obviously making him more weak and have to deal with distractions and a very foreign world. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen when he gets his eyes back. How that's going to be so huge. So I'm really, really impressed with it. 5 out of 5.
Jason, how about you?
I'm actually in the same boat. 5 out of 5 for me. It kind of blew me away. Again, I have a special place in my heart for feudal Japan style of anime, but everything from the quote unquote villain to our quote unquote hero, everything's a bit morally gray, so you can't take anything at face value, but at the same time, they're able to insert those light moments, a bit of humor here and there. But then also we get that dark and gritty without it being too gory. I think that's one of the problems that we've had in some animes here lately is that they go too far on the gore and then it either becomes unrealistic or unpalatable. This is just a great mix, and I'm really looking forward to the next 12 episodes.
I'm actually going to go a little lower than you guys. I'm going to do a 4 for now. And that's almost purely because of the episodic nature of it. I think some of the episodes weren't as strong as others. I think the story as a whole is fantastic, but it's just
like Friends.
It's a very high 4. There's episodic content of things. I watch plenty of shows that are episodic. I just prefer serialized. And like I said, there's the blood sword. That was it's kind of a weak episode. And some of the backstories. The overall story is great. There's just a few stumbles here and there. That's all. One other thing I wanted to add. I really like that when Hakimaru could talk, he didn't suddenly become a chatty Cathy and his character changed. And he still is very mysterious and no, I don't talk. Just because I can doesn't mean I suddenly will. That was cool.
That was.
Okay. That was it for final reviews. So if you would like to comment on your thoughts on this first half, please don't spoil us on what's coming. We would like to find out on our own. But you can reach us on our Twitter at Baka Podcast, our email, the animebakaclub@gmail.com, or leave a comment wherever you found the podcast. Obviously, what we're watching next is the rest of this series, and then we will be coming back to talk about it. That's it? That all I got to do? Is that how we end the show? I don't remember. Also, this is our last time doing Hangouts. If you watch the YouTube, we'll probably look different because they are killing our program that we use to record this podcast. So let's hope there's no podcast in 2 weeks. Yay! All right, let's go ahead and say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
Until midnight at the Well of Souls.
Sayonara.